everyone, welcome to the world of English. Today I am signing you on with the continual session of chapter Anime Book Vista grade 12. So today we will be finishing the chapter line by line explanation as I started yesterday session which you are having today, and by evening you will be getting the long questions and short questions with the notes. Okay, so you all are requested to pen down all the notes as well. So shall I move on to the text now? And I hope you all are sitting with your textbooks or the PDF based form. Moving to the next page. If it mattered to him what was the body upon which he worked so long, as it was for the work he did so excellently. You will have to give the anesthetic if he needs it, he said. So they both decided how to proceed with the surgery. As yesterday's session, we left the text work that they both were ready to operate the patient, and all the domestic help left them all alone with the patient. So they both were there to help each other. So Dr. Sadao requested the lady, the wife Hannah, to give anesthesia because he wanted to operate. She repeated blankly, but never have I. It is easy enough, he said impatiently. He was taking out the packing now, and the blood began to flow more quickly. He peered into the wound with the bright surgeon's light fastens on his forehead. The bullet is still there. Cool interest. How deep this wound? Now, this is the condition of the wound. Look at the picture. You will understand how they were treating the patient. Okay, just both husband and wife and the patient. Condition was drastic, so bad condition, but they were supporting each other. That is the reason that if whatever the condition, whatever the situation, we need to make the situation favorable. She was unaware how to give the anesthesia, but he guided her. Dr. Sadao guided her, his wife, sorry. So, if it is not to be that I can get the bullet, but the bleeding is not superficial. He has lost much blood. Now, superficial means it's a physical thing. Okay, if the content will get more low, then patient can also die. So the situation in every condition was getting bad to worse, but they were fully determined to save the patient. So when she said he has lost already lot of blood, so we need to find the bullet as soon as possible. At this moment, Hannah choked. He looked up and saw her face the color of sulphur. Don't faint, he said sharply. He did not put down his exploring instrument. If I stop now, the man will surely die. She clapped her hands to her mouth and leaped up and ran out of the room. Outside in the garden, he heard her retching, but he went on with his work. Sorry for disconnecting, guys. At this moment, Hannah choked. He looked up and saw her face the color of sulphur. As she was giving the anesthesia, she was not expertise of that, and she got little portion, you can say a bit of. Don't faint, he said sharply. You need to control. He did not put down his exploring instrument. If I stop now, because he couldn't console, he couldn't settle, he couldn't pacify the situation, physical situation of his wife. So he said that I can't stop now. The man will surely die. She clapped her hands to her mouth as when we are just feeling to vomit. Okay, in the same condition she was feeling. She clapped her hand to her mouth and leaped up and ran out of the room. Outside in the garden he heard her retching. Retching means the vomiting. But he went on with his work. He was continuing his work because he was far sure that his wife will manage the situation. It will be better for her to empty her stomach, because later on also she must be having some sort of assistance in which she will have some medicine like that. He thought he had forgotten that of course she had never seen an operation, but her distress and his inability to go to her at once made him impatient and irritable with his man, who lay like dead under his knife. Knife not here to kill the patient, the instrument, the medical tools, okay, which are used during surgery. So he said that it's better to empty the stomach because she has never seen the surgery like that. Otherwise, she will have more and more retching session or the vomiting session. Okay. Moving to the next page, this man, he thought there is no reason under heaven why he should live. Unconsciously, this thought made him, he proceeded swiftly. In his dream, the man, Sadao, paid no heed except to mutter at him. They both were talking. Hannah was talking something to the man, to the husband, but he didn't give any attention. No heed means no attention. Groan, he muttered. Groan if you like. I'm not doing this for my own pleasure. And Hannah was saying that what you are doing. If man has not been left alive, why you are making him alive? Then he muttered, groan if you like. If you like, you can groan, you can cry. I'm not doing this for my pleasure. There is no pleasure for a doctor to make the surgery. In fact, I don't know why I am doing it. He was not knowing why he is doing because he was an enemy. The door opened and there was Hannah again. Where is the anesthetic? She asked in a clear voice. Sadao mentioned with his chin, it is as well that you came back. He said, this fellow is beginning to stir some motion, some movement. She had the bottle and some cotton in her hand. But how shall I do it? She asked. Okay, first she had just opened. Fine, just open and the aroma, the strong aromatic affected her senses and she was feeling to vomit. Now again the situation that he had to perform the surgery but without anesthesia it was difficult. So he was saying, where is my anesthetic? Simply saturate the cotton and hold it near his nostrils. Sadao replied without. Now he explained the way properly, without delaying for one moment the intricate detail of his work. When he breathes badly, move it away a little. When she was explained properly, then anesthesia was given properly by the lady, by the wife, even though she was unaware of the system, of the procedure of giving the anesthesia, but it was given. She crouched close to the sleeping face of the young American, little bent down. It was piteously thin face, she thought, and the lips were twisted. The man was suffering, whether he knew it or not. Watching him, she wondered if the stories they heard sometimes of the suffering of prisoners were true. They came like flickers of rumor, told by word of mouth and always contradicted because of some lip sync movement and his physical status. She was just talking about that the man is thinking about the torture which he had in the imprisonment and the prisoners are having very bad time. In the newspaper the reports were always that whatever the Japanese armies, when the people received them gladly with cries of joy at their liberation, but sometimes she remembered such men as General Takema, who at home beat his wife cruelly. She was thinking while giving, as she has given the anesthesia, and she was just looking at the piteous face of the soldier, and she was talking about the torture which he had suffered a lot. And she was talking that if the general like Takama, who is so cruel to beat the wife as well, has no mercy for anyone, though no one mentioned it now that he had fought so victorious a battle in Manchuria. If a man like that could be so cruel to a woman in his power, would he not be cruel to one like this, for instance? Because they all know, everyone knows about the nature of the cruel general Tekima. That is why who has always beaten the wife. So she was just imagining the situation in the imprisonment. She hoped anxiously that this young man had not been tortured. She hoped that must have saved him. It was at this moment that she observed deep red scars on his neck just under the ear. Under the ear, the scars on his neck. So this was the condition. Now question can be asked where she found the scars, how she was thinking about the pain. Okay, so these all things which I explained you can mention in your question. Those scars, she murmured very slowly when we whispered, lifting her eyes to Sadao. But he didn't answer because he was fully concentrated to his operation. At this moment, he felt the tip of his instrument strike against something hard, dangerously. Coming to the next page. Dangerously near the kidney, because he was not having all the tools, no lighting, no stretcher, no hospital type facilities. So it was very risky to operate the patient even by the expertise. So by just doing the operation, his knife was about to touch the kidney area. All thought left him. He felt only the purest pleasure. He probed with his finger, delicately familiar with every atom of his human body, because he was an expertise doctor and a scientist, surgeon as well. So, with his touch of the finger, delicately, he made the things possible. His old American professor of anatomy had seen to that knowledge. Ignorance of the human body is the surgeon's cardinal sin, sirs. Then he remembered his American professor of anatomy that if a surgeon sorry, if a surgeon ignores something, or ignorance of the human body is the surgeon's cardinal sin. Sin. Sin means you all know better. He had thundered at his classes year after year to operate without as complete knowledge of the body as if you had made it. Anything less than that is murder. Yes, of course, it's a pure killing by the doctor. If a bit of ignorance is made. It is not quite at the kidney, my friend, Sadao murmured. It was his habit to murmur to the patient when he forgot himself in an operation. My friend, he always called his patient, and so now he did, forgetting that this was his enemy. Now, he forgot everything about the person, about the soldier, who he is. He was a patient only, not an enemy. Then quickly, with the cleanest incisions, the bullet was out. Quickly movement was made. With the incision, the bullet was out. The man quite was still unconscious, but man was still unconscious. Nevertheless, he muttered some English words. Yes, guts, he muttered, choking. They got my guts. Sadao, Hannah cried sharply. Shh, Sadao said. The man sank again into silence so profound that Sadao took up his wrist, hating the touch of it. Yes, there was still a pulse, so faint, so feeble. Feeble means weak. Faint means getting down, sinking when we are not breathing properly. But enough if he wanted the man to live, to give hope. But certainly I don't want this man to live, he thought. No more anesthetic, he told Hannah. He stopped Hannah. All done. No more anesthetic. Whatever the possibility I have made, now I don't want to make more. He turned as swiftly as though he had never paused, and from his medicines he chose a small vial, and from it filled a hypodermic and thrust it into the patient's left arm. Then, putting down the needle, he took the man's wrist again. The pulse under his finger fluttered once or twice and then grew stronger. The little movement of the finger, like feather of the birds, fluttering birds, if you have seen. This man will live in spite of all, he said to Hannah and ceased. The young man walked so weak, his blue eyes so terrified when he perceived. Little movement in finger, he chalked and he walked as well, but he was so weak. Where he was, that Hannah felt compelled to apologize. She herself served him, for none of the servants would enter the room. When she came in the first time, she saw him summon his small strength to be prepared for some fearful thing. Now, this is a time when he was awakened. Okay, and then she came in the first time. Don't be afraid, she begged him softly. She simply said, "How come you speak English?" He gasped. He just perplexed, got confused at Japanese home and he's listening English. "I was a long time in America," she replied. She saw that he wanted to reply to that, but he could not. So she knelt and fed him gently from the porcelain spoon. He ate unwillingly, but still he ate. She fed her. She bent down with the porcelain spoon. She fed him, okay, and he also ate unwillingly, but still he had to eat. "Now you will soon be strong," she said. She pacified the patient, not liking him, and yet moved to comfort him. Even though he was an enemy, both were not liking him, but moved to comfort him. He did not answer. When Sadao came in the third day after he found the young man sitting up, his face was moving with little effort. "Lie down," Sadao cried. "Do you want to die?" He forced the man down gently and strongly and examined the wound. "You may kill yourself if you do this sort of thing," he scolded, because he was moving his body in some other way. That's why she simply said that Dr. Sadao need to stop him. So in a very strict manner, like scolding, he just said, "You will die if you will bend like this." "What are you doing to do with me?" the boy muttered. He looked just now barely 17. "Are you going to hand me over?" For a moment, Sadao didn't answer. He finished his examination and then pulled the silk quilt over the man. The man was asking, "What are you doing with me?" because doctor was there to examine. Dr. Sadao was just examining him, and he got scared that now he will be thrown to the jail once again. But Dr. Sadao didn't answer. "I don't know myself what I shall do with you," he said. "I ought, of course, to give you to the police. You are a prisoner of war." "No, do not tell me anything." He put up his hand as he saw the young man was about to speak. "Do not even tell me your name unless I ask it." He stopped for any sort of answer. They looked at each other for a moment, and then the young man closed his eyes and turned his face to the wall. "Okay," he whispered, his mouth a bitter line. Outside the door, Hannah was waiting for Sadao. He saw at once that she was in trouble. "Sadao, Yumi tells me the servants feel they cannot stay if we hide this man here anymore," she said. "She tells me that they are saying that you and I were so long committed because they were so close to each other. That's why they all decided that we will not leave, but for longer time, if we are keeping this patient, this prisoner at home, it will be dangerous, or they will leave the home, or we will be complained against." Moving to the next page, America, that we have forgotten to think of our own country first. They think we like Americans. "It is not true," Sadao said harshly. "Americans are our enemies, but I have been trained not to let a man die if I can help it." Because he was a doctor, and verdict of doctor is very important rather than to just make the money or following the professionalism. So He was just explaining. The servants cannot understand that because they both were talking about the servants. So he just claimed that servants can't understand the feeling. She said anxiously, no, he agreed. Neither seemed able to say more, and somehow the households dragged on. Household dragged on because they have left to work. Okay, unless the patient is means the prisoner is given to the general. Neither seemed able to say more, and somehow the household dragged on. The servants grew more watchful. Their courtesy was as careful as ever, but their eyes were cold upon the pair to whom they were hired. But still, they were thinking about the family. It is clear what our master ought to do, the old gardener said one morning. Even one old gardener decided properly that even though many days over, the prisoner is still served in the house. So we should not. He had worked with flowers all his life and had been a specialist too in moss. This means he was just explaining that whole of the life he worked with the flowers means he was so truthful, dutiful toward his country, toward his nation. But this time moss is the poison. But he had made one of the finest moss garden in Japan, sweeping the bright green carpet constantly so that not a leaf or a pine needle marred the velvet of its surface. Miss so caring, so delicately, he performed his all duties to take care of the garden. My old master's son knows very well what he ought to do, he now said, pinching a bud from a bush as he spoke. When the man was so near death, why did he not let him bleed? Because now it was not acceptable by any of the servants to see the man. They all said that why they did not let the man to die. Let the man die. That young master is so proud of his skill to save life that he saves any life. The cook said contemporary, split a fowl's neck skillfully and held the fluttering let its blood flow into the roots of a wisteria, the best of fertilizer, and the old gardener would not let her waste a drop of it. It is the children of whom we must think, Yumi said sadly. What will be their fate if their father is condemned as a traitor? Traitor means going against the values. They did not try to hide what they said from the ears of Hannah as she stood arranging the day's flower in the veranda nearby, and she knew they spoke on purpose that she might hear. That they were right, she knew too in most of her being, but there was another part of her which she herself could not understand. It was not sentimental liking of the prisoner. She had come to think of him as a prisoner. She had not liked him even yesterday. Now they all went against, all the servants went against to the family, to the couple who saved the prisoner, and they were putting their own claims. But even though they were so close to the family, they were so caring, so courteous to the family, never spoke against the couple once in their life. But this time they were thinking about their nation's pride only. He had said in his impulsive way, anyway, let me tell you that my name is Tom. She had only bowed her little distant bow. She saw hurt in his eyes, but she didn't wish to assuage it. Assuage it means to comfort, to satisfy, to pacify. When we don't want to pacify internally, just we are doing the formalities. So they both were doing the formalities as a doctor couple. So, as for Sadao, every day he examined the wound carefully. The last stitches had been pulled out this morning, and the young man would, in a fortnight means 2 weeks, 15 days, be nearly as well as ever. as he will be fine in a fortnight. Sadao went back to his office and carefully typed a letter to the chief of police reporting the whole matter. On the 21st day of February, an escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of my house. He typed, and then he opened a secret drawer of his desk and put the unfinished report into it. He decided to write a report to the general office about the prisoner, about the things happened in their home, but he didn't complete it. On the seventh day after that, two things happened. In the morning, the servants left together. All servants left on the seventh day. Their belongings tied in large square cotton kerchiefs. When Hannah got up in the morning, nothing was done. The house not clean and the food not prepared, and she knew what it meant. She was dismayed and even terrified, but her pride as a mistress would not allow her to show it. Instead, she inclined her head gracefully when they appeared before her in the kitchen, and she paid them off. As she was the mistress, she could say anything to them, those who were leaving, but she maintained the dignity. Instead, that she inclined her head gracefully when they appeared before her in the kitchen and cleared the dues, paid them off, and thanked them for all the services they had done for her. They were crying, but she did not cry. The cook and the other servants had served Sadao since he was a little boy in the house, and Yumi cried because of the children. They were so close. As a governess, if you can understand the situation, for a governess who is very close to the small kids, grieving that after she had gone, she ran back to the home. If the baby misses me too much tonight, send for me. And then she said that if the baby will miss me, then please send a message to me. Still, they were not willing to go, willing to leave. I'm going to my own house and you know where it is. Thank you, Hannah said, smiling. But she told herself she would not send for Yumi, however the baby cried. She committed that whatever the situation, she will manage the baby, cry baby as well. She made the breakfast and Sadao helped with the children. Neither of them spoke of the servants beyond the fact that they were gone. But after Hannah had taken morning food to the prisoner, she came back to Sadao. Why is it we cannot see clearly what we ought to do? Then they were talking to each other after giving the breakfast that we should think over it, which we are ignoring. What they were ignoring to report back to the general office. Even the servants see more clearly than we do. Why are we different from other Japanese? Sadao didn't answer, but a little later he went into the room where the prisoner was and said brusquely means openly, straightforward. Today you may get up on your feet. Some movement he suggested to make. I want you to stay up only 5 minutes at a time. Tomorrow you may try it twice as not more than 5 minutes. Tomorrow you may try it twice as long. If you remember that how doctors suggest the patients after the surgery to start your body movements gradually, in the same way he was guided by the doctor. He saw the flicker of terror on the young face that was still very pale. Okay, the boy murmured. Evidently, he was determined to say more. I feel I ought to thank you, doctor, for having saved my life. Now they were talking little formal. Don't thank me too early, Sadao said coldly. He saw the flicker of terror, a sign of terror again in the boy's eyes. Terror as unmistakable as an animal's. The scars on his neck were crimson for a moment. Those scars, what were they? Sadao didn't ask. In the afternoon, the second thing happened. First thing, all servants left. Now the second thing. Hannah, working hard on unaccustomed labor, saw a messenger come to the door in official uniform. Her hands went weak and she could not draw her breath. She got scared badly. This was a situation when she saw the messenger in official uniform. Their servants must have told already. She talked to herself. Must have already. We have been. The journal office has been informed that we were treating a prisoner, an American war prisoner. She ran to Sadao, gasping, unable to utter a word. But by then the messenger had simply followed her through the garden, and there he stood. She pointed at him helplessly. She got so scary and she was not even able to answer properly. Sadao looked up from his book. He was in his office, the other partition of which was thrown open for the southern sunshine. What is it? The messenger, and then he rose, seeing the man's uniform. You are to come to the palace. The man said, the old general is in pain again. Okay, till this you understood that the messenger said to explain the unwellness or the pain of the general because he was a doctor, not the complaint. No complaint was made yet. Oh, Hannah breathed. She settled herself. Is that all? All, the messenger exclaimed. Yeah, is it all? This is only. Is it not enough? Indeed it is. She replied, I am very sorry. When Sadao came to say goodbye, she was in the kitchen but doing nothing. The children were asleep and she sat merely resting for a moment, more exhausted because of the terror from her fright than from work. She got frightened not of doing lot of work at home, caring, cooking, cleaning, preparing food,